Hey, everybody. Marisa Brassfield from Ridiculously Efficient here. Forgive me, I'm usually the one behind the camera, or orchestrating things behind the scenes. So it's a rare foray into front stage activity for me. Again, thank you for spending part of your day with me. I know it's a crazy, hectic week. We've got a wide variety of folks on the webinar today, and I know a handful of you personally. So thank you so much. I know intimately how busy you are. So thanks. My goal is that by the time we're done with this webinar, you're going to have a ton of valuable insights and concrete ideas of actions that you want to take. For some of us, this is a period of shutdown or at least decreased external requests. So it's the perfect time to focus on yourself and your family and the things that you want to achieve in the new year. So what I'm going to do here is I'll give you a 5-part framework that I use to manage myself in every area of work and life. And then after we're done, I'm going to send you a big list of just awesome resources, a replay of this session, as well as a scorecard that I use to evaluate myself. So this particular webinar is tailored to people who work at home. But I know from looking at the guest list that some of you work out of offices, but either manage remote employees or are maybe thinking about having a remote workforce. So if you're in that camp, I'm going to present a vision of future work that's very, very different from the traditional work environment that a lot of us came up with. So think carefully about your best performers while you're listening to this and see whether they might operate best in the current paradigm or in one that's been made ridiculously efficient. So before we really dive into it, just a quick bit about me, because I know there's some folks who don't know me. So I've been working from home on a full-time basis since 2007 in a variety of editorial leadership roles. So I was the senior editor at trendhunter.com, and in a 2-year span, I wrote 5,000 articles and edited about 20,000, and created this intern program that took completely green writers to a 1,000 article portfolio in about 4 months. And we took about 25 interns through that. So after I left Trend Hunter, I kept on writing and editing. To date, my portfolio has over 10,000 articles, which have gotten over 50 million views. And in 2011, I founded Ridiculously Efficient and began coaching high-earning freelancers, solopreneurs, and small teams. And in 2012, which is where a few of you know me, I took on my biggest client yet, tech entrepreneur Peter Diamandis. He's the author of Abundance and Bold. He founded X Prize and Singularity University and Planetary Resources, just this incredible speaker and visionary. I originally started doing social media and some writing for him, but then now I run a multi-million-dollar business unit called Abundance 360, where we help successful entrepreneurs learn to leverage exponential technologies to generate extraordinary wealth and create significance for themselves and abundance in the world. So between all of these activities, I lead 2 small teams of contractors in a startup-like pressure cooker atmosphere, and everybody works from home. So I tell you this not to boast, but just to contextualize what I'm about to share, because this stuff is absolutely battle tested and it absolutely works. It's not just for me, but for my teams, my coaching clients and their teams. And I see some coaching clients on, so hi and thank you again. So let's dive in. So just a little housekeeping. If you are watching right now on Crowdcast, you'll be able to chat, ask me questions, and answer poll questions. And if you're watching on Google Plus Hangouts, just look for the little Q&A button. It's either on the top right or on the left pane, and you can enter questions and vote them up. And yeah, hopefully this will be super interactive. And ideally, I'd love to have the last portion of our conversation today be your questions. So have them ready. And yeah, so let's see. My goal is to share these strategies with you, 5 strategies, and then use the rest of our time for questions. But if I don't see them, I'll keep going, so don't be shy. So a little earlier, I mentioned the scorecard that I'm going to send you for afterward. And this is all a game. I mean, I love it. I played team sports all my life, including varsity softball at the University of Pennsylvania. So it comes naturally to me to think of any challenge as a game and then quickly find out the rules that affect success, failure, and fun. So how do I win the game? How does someone lose? And what position in this game will be most fun for me to play, whether I win or lose? So there's an anonymous quote that I wrote down. It goes like this. Everybody is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it's stupid. So the first strategy here is to find out your superhero skills, the things that set you apart from anyone else on the planet, and then find a way to do those things as much as you can in your work week. And ideally, over time, you craft a career that's completely comprised of these activities. So when I was 12, I was just starting to play softball, and I was at the stage where the coaches are still kind of cycling everyone through positions to see where to place people. And I was put in center field because I was a newer player, but I was fast and I had an okay arm. But for a 12-year-old especially, the outfield's a really boring place to be. And I thought, heck, the pitcher and the catcher, they are in on every play. They have control over the pace of the game. I want to be one of them. So I started behind home plate, but I couldn't see out of the catcher's mitt. So I expressed an interest in pitching and began taking lessons. But we noticed something very, very early on. I couldn't throw very hard. I did not have a blistering fastball. And at 12, all that matters is that you can throw the ball past people, really. So my pitching coach had me look at film of Whitey Ford, Greg Maddux, Mariano Rivera, and even Tim Wakefield to understand the psychology and the science of control and moving pitches, and the idea that you can win without having that conventional blistering fastball that everyone else had. So that single coaching act enabled a very successful pitching career for myself, but it also taught me the importance of playing your position. So once you find the areas where you uniquely contribute value to the world, you create a space around yourself where it's fun to thrive and push yourself and find new ways to grow. So, where to start, especially when we're kind of midstream and we're all, we've already embarked on a career. So for me, passion areas, activities that you gravitate to, that's first. But to be honest, I found the most value in 3 assessments. So there's the Kolbe Index A, StrengthsFinder Top Themes, and the Fascination Advantage by Sally Hogshead. So in case these assessments are new to you, the Kolbe Index A basically measures the conative part of your brain, specifically the modes of action where you're striving. When you're trying your hardest, are you creating systems or are you breaking them? Are you building things with your hands or are you imagining what things could look like? And when you're working closely with a colleague or a spouse or a small team, in what areas are you prone to miscommunication? So for example, it gives you 4 numbers at the end, and I'm 6'8", 5'2", which means that I'm the 8 is follow through. So it means that I very much like to create systems and processes from scratch. I'm not the kind of person who will look for what's worked in the past and then, create a system. Nope, I gotta, dump the Halloween candy out on the table and I will organize it and help you rank order which to eat first. But I don't want you to tell me which one I should eat first. So I did this as a child and now I basically do the same thing for multimillionaires, which is kind of funny. So the next one is StrengthsFinder. You can find a code if you get a copy of this book, Strengths-Based Leadership. So if I think of my Kolbe as the how, the StrengthsFinder is the what. It's the unique ways that you lead others. So for example, my top strengths are maximizer, individualization, achiever, relator, and strategic. So if you combine that with my Kolbe score, I'm really drawn to creating systems, strategies, and processes that help people do, be, and achieve more. The achiever in there, I love leading by example. And then individualization and relator, I'm really into understanding that everyone's situation is different. So for me, one-size-fits-all approaches are automatically out. So that's the second assessment. And the third one is the Fascination Advantage by Sally Hogshead, who wrote this book. And I actually have some free passes. She did this great holiday thing where she's giving away a bunch of codes. So I'll include those in the email too. But basically the Fascination Advantage is about how the world sees you. And my archetype there is the connoisseur, which is passion and prestige. So for me, it's all about doing things that excite me, and it's all about accepting the best with no substitutions. So here's the first strategy. It's all about helping you find a rewarding role, the way that you contribute the most value to the world. A trap that high performers often fall into is the opportunity trap. When you're good, people want to try to see what else you're good at. And on the one hand, that can stretch you and enable new capabilities that you never thought possible. But on the other, it can also send you into roles that devalue your contribution. everybody's worked with somebody like this, but for me, it was a really talented salesperson who, it was the best one by far, but then got promoted into management and became a cranky mess because he was taken out of an activity that he found fulfilling and loved and was good at, which was conversations with new prospects, and into an activity he hated, which was meetings and bureaucracy and, babysitting at that organization. So avoid that by taking these 3 assessments. So it's the Kolbe Index A, the Strengths Finder, and Fascination Advantage, and then devote some time to studying and applying the results. Lean into it and see how it feels when you focus on improving your strengths and operating within activities that feel natural to you. And if you've already taken these assessments and you want some help understanding what they mean, definitely let me know. I love helping in this area. And one of our team members at Ridiculously Efficient is Kolbe certified. So she's got like the really super, super clean insights in that area. So that's the first one. So the second one, and this is a big one, but it has to do with creating an empowering environment. I don't necessarily mean that every room you enter has to make you happy, but that's a good start. For me, the next layer is all about enabling your best, most focused thinking, whatever that means for you. So a year ago, my dad died, which was 14 months after my mom died, and my husband and I decided to move from our amazing little apartment in San Diego into this, my childhood home in Los Angeles, and make it ours. And that was this past January. And when we drove up here with our cats and boxes and stuff, the first thing I needed to do was find a suitable workspace, because here it was January, we've got Abundance 360, my big event at the end of the month. This is the prime time for work. And of course, an empowering, great workspace is the last thing I found when we got here. My parents' stuff was all here, and they'd lived in this house since the 70s, so there was a whole decade of memories and stuff even before I was born, plus my whole lifetime's worth of things, plus our stuff that we brought up from San Diego. There was absolutely no way I could work here. I have a photo from those times, and I'm almost exactly in the same spot in the living room I am now, except these boxes were up almost to the ceiling, and then I was standing on the seat of the couch and just standing to work. It was crazy. And definitely not sustainable. So my husband thought, well, hey, we've got a small house, but we have a really big backyard. How about we build you an office in the backyard? So we found a modern looking shed at Costco. And over about 3 weeks, he and a friend built it, insulated it, ran electricity, the whole thing. And they just did the most fabulous job designing it. And it's just this amazing, beautiful place. If my router was out there, I'd be out there right now, but I want to plug in to give you guys the best bandwidth possible. So inspired by the 100+ degree heat this summer in Los Angeles, we also turned my parents' old room into a beautiful study with a big whiteboard, and I use that for team meetings and on days where I'm writing or brainstorming. And I have a couple of additional outdoor workspaces, one's on the other side of this wall with beautiful picnic tables and just views of slightly different parts of the backyard. And all told, I have dedicated areas for sales calls, creative writing, brainstorming, admin tasks, reading, recording videos, doing webinars. And because I religiously use these certain areas just for those certain activities, just entering the space primes my brain and jolts me into like the right frame of mind for that particular activity. So I know that my life is a little bit insane in that way and extreme, but imagine what it would feel like if just walking into your home workstation just triggers your best work because you're that primed, or just walking into your bathroom or your bedroom instantly made you relax. Once you have that, you have this powerful tool chest to use throughout the workday and the work week to shake you out of a funk. If I'm not feeling creative, I think, well, where am I? And then I go to a place in my home or a workstation that makes me feel creative. If I feel stressed out, I walk into a different room and I spend 5 or 6 minutes in there just recentering, and then I'm fine. It's a proactive way to live rather than reactive. So often we fight the rooms we're in and we try to succeed despite them. So for me, I destroy to create. That's just the way I do it. So here's a field trip. Take a little visit to a really luxurious spa or a 5-star hotel. So visit, the Beverly Wilshire if you're here in Los Angeles, or whatever is the really just top notch, if there's a Four Seasons, anything you can find. take note of all the little details that contribute to that luxurious or relaxing feel. So, I mean, honestly, spend a couple hours there, maybe with a notebook or your phone. Look at the architectural details, look at the colors, look at the fabrics, look at the crown molding and the ceilings, the sculptures, the embroidery, the flowers, what the employees are wearing, how they behave, how they, their comportment. Snap a few photos, take down some notes, and then somewhere in those notes or in those photos, if you snap a selfie or something, just capture how these details make you feel. It can be just a couple of words, but just write something down while you're there. And then when you're back home, you'll be able to look at your workspace with fresh eyes and especially identify the details that you can enhance to make your time a little bit better. So I have a tool to help you work through this, which I'll also send to you. It's called the Physical Space Diagnostic, and some simple ideas to give your work area a facelift. So this next one is the biggest one, and it's breaking barriers for yourself and others. So as a leader or a team member, one of the best things you can do is help create momentum for others by helping them overcome obstacles to progress. And for anyone doing contract work, the results that you create for your clients are a form of momentum as well. You know, we all have barriers to our own productivity, whether it's focus or time or others' actions or inactions. And honestly, this section alone could be 10 webinars. I have had coaching clients where the entire 3-month engagement was the client presenting her biggest challenges of the week, and then me brainstorming with her a few ways to overcome the obstacles. No overarching goals or skill development, just literally help me keep my head above water for the next 3 months. So the strategy here is simple, but not easy, and it will make some tremendous improvements in this area. Okay, so every email you send from here on out catalyzes action. Every single email you send either initiates or maintains forward progress for you or someone else. Sounds easy, but a lot of the emails that we send don't catalyze action. And if it doesn't, it could be context, which is usually faster and easier to deliver with a phone call or a text or a face-to-face conversation. Or maybe it's not something that should be an email at all. It's not actually helping create results or momentum for anyone else or for yourself. So yes, this is an extreme position, but how many of you get hundreds of emails a day? Give the people you respect the luxury, the gift of effective communication. So separately, and I saw that Lisa had a question on this earlier, how to determine where you've hit your efficiency limit and when to delegate. That's a huge barrier to break, and it's a two-parter. So I just want to quickly share how I would think through that. So for my efficiency limits, the line of questioning is something like this. Do I feel engaged and excited or exhausted? If I'm exhausted, is it a short-term situation that will resolve itself, or is there no end in sight? Do I feel engaged and excited about how I'm spending my time and my life, really? This is a hell yes or no situation. And if it's a no, I try and dive into the 20% of actions, people, and activities that are causing 80% of my negative feelings. So for delegating, the second part of that, the line of questioning is a little bit different. So can someone do this better than me for less, or at the same competency level, and then is there room for upward growth? Could I use the time I'm currently spending on this activity on things that only I can do, like revenue generation or content creation? Am I procrastinating on doing this activity? So for me, that's a huge one. When I notice that I'm procrastinating, it's usually because either I'm not very good at that thing or I don't want to do that thing. And in both cases, it is just always best for me to get out of my own way and focus on stuff that I'm good at and things that I enjoy. So the next strategy on how to continually get better. So ultimately, when you're your own boss, you're also in charge of incentivizing your continued development and growth. Because if that doesn't come from you inside, it comes from someone else. And the whole ridiculously efficient game is about breaking the mold and being proactive rather than reactive. So how do I do this? There's two strategies here, so pick one and test it out. So the first is gamification, and then the second is the idea of destroying to create. So for me, my core process in my life. Every 90 days, I pick an area of my life to re-engineer from scratch, destroy to create. It could be my morning routine or my evening routine or the email client that I use, a core workflow, something that is really, really central to being. Could be workout habits or the days that I take meetings or the times that I take meetings. I mean, just really something core, near and dear to me, and then forcing myself to re-engineer it. So this leverages Parkinson's law, or the idea that the amount of time it takes to do something is exactly as much time as you have to do it. So cleaning the house can be an all-day activity without any urgency, or something that I can do in 25 minutes because I just got a phone call from my mother-in-law and she's on her way over. So inflating that sense of urgency for yourself is exactly what to do to gamify any activity, whether it's email or writing or editing. It's exactly how I got to some of those writing metrics and benchmarks of performance that I shared earlier in the webinar. So it's easy to do this. Just find the numbers and the data that relate to the result you want to achieve, and then make a bet with yourself, a wager. So one of my favorite personal productivity strategies, and this has applied when I was a writer, editor, a manager, every aspect of activity that I do, even just getting back into shape, cleaning the house, everything I try and gamify. So one of the best things that's worked for me at work is I write a really, really aggressive to-do list. And I tell myself, okay, as soon as, and I really try and be exhaustive, like what is the list look like of all of the things that I could possibly do to feel really great about my day? So the list can get pretty long. And then here's the wager. I go, okay, as soon as all of these activities are finished, my workday is done. Doesn't matter if it's 2 p.m., 10 p.m., or 10 a.m. And dozens of times I've completed my list, looked at, especially if it's summertime or a weekend, and I'd rather be someplace else or doing something. So many times I've completed that list. I look at the clock and it's like 10:30 in the morning. But there's no better incentive for me ever than time. So that's the best way that I've found for myself to increase my personal productivity. So if time is a good carrot for you, definitely try that one out. So finally, this final piece, and then I want to go to your questions, is learning and leisure. So many of us get trapped in our own routines, and we don't create new knowledge, or we don't discover new things. We silence the inner child who just wants to play without constraints. So how many of you have justified spending time on a hobby in conversations with others? I used to notice this all the time in myself. Like, I need to justify the ROI of learning how to grow and maintain orchids, or do Pilates, or study wine or craft beer. Sometimes you just need to do things for the pure joy and fun of it. This sounds so silly and obvious, but when you're working from home, a common trap is to think that you don't have time for that stuff because you could and should be building your business. So here's a strategy. Every time you want to say, I don't have time to blank, try saying this instead. Blank is not a priority. So I don't have time to call my grandmother. Calling my grandmother is not a priority. I don't have time to cook dinner myself. Cooking dinner myself is not a priority. Now, in some cases, this exercise reveals some cruel truths. You may not think it's important to cook dinner yourself or call your grandmother, and it's totally up to you. But then again, you might. And doing this exercise makes you notice that your priorities are screwed up. So here's a bonus strategy, since that one's a little smaller and it's just kind of a quick thing. One thing that I love to take coaching clients through is I have them go to bed an hour earlier and wake up an hour earlier, and then just do something of their choosing. Something that is intentional and that helps restore and recharge them. So it could be walking or exercise, could be brainstorming, could be creative writing, could be reading, could be catching up with a friend who is in Europe, or in a complementary time zone. But that little hour of just starting your day in a way that you choose, not dictated by the reactiveness of emails or texts or calls or all the things that you have to do for someone else's agenda. There's something so simple and powerful about starting the day the way that you decide that just has some tremendous, tremendous results. So now I want to get into your questions. So definitely, I'm just going to look now and see what we got here. The email rule, John. Okay, so the email rule is every single email that you send catalyzes action or momentum. Every email that you send in some way sets, enables, helps safeguard forward progress. So it's setting things into action. The opposite would be emails where there is nothing to act on, nothing, no new knowledge, no, just a here. And as a leader, that often complicates your message because these your team doesn't know what to do with the information. So they either do nothing, which sets the tone that some of your emails require no action, or it muddles and hides in the context of an inbox that gets hundreds of emails. Your really important stuff gets buried with all the other stuff. So yeah, that is that. Let's see. I have lots of other goodies. So while you guys enter your questions, I'll come up with some other ones. So some of these time management and prioritization things, a lot of quick hits you can do there. Oh yeah, Don, hi. So hell yes or no, that's Derek Sivers, S-I-V-E-R-S, is the thought leader that I heard it from. I forget, I don't know what his book is, but he's written about it in many, many books and blogs, but I heard about it through blogs, and I just love it because it's commit or don't do it. And life is way, way, way too short to do things that you're not passionate about and that don't actually excite you. And especially these days, there's no shortage of opportunity. It's just which opportunities are right. And Tim Ferriss recently wrote a blog post that touches on some of these topics, but he mentioned the hell yes or no in that as well, which kind of popped it up in my head. But another idea that he found, there was the blog post was about him getting out of startup advising, just deciding that he wants to get back to creating and being, and writing and all that. And he was recalling a conversation that he had with an investor, and the blog post I can send out as well, but in so many words, the VC told him, hey, you're replaceable. Like if you don't invest in them, the startup will just find another investor. You're totally replaceable. But this is the VC talking, I have seen people come up to you at conferences crying because they lost 100 pounds on the slow carb diet and, saying that you've changed their lives. Like that's an example of an area where you will never be replaced. And he concluded it with like, hey, please don't stop writing. So there's that kind of plays into the whole role too, where it's like, what are you doing where you cannot be replaced? And a lot of these jobs that like these this interim work that folks are doing from home now, soon it's going to be artificial intelligence and robots that do all those things. So when all the really tedious work goes away, there's going to be a pool of folks who don't know what to do because they haven't explored their passions in 20 years and haven't been encouraged in that fashion. So, but the ridiculously efficient army, that will never be us because we're too busy playing. All right, what else, you guys? So let's see. So let's talk about prioritization. When you have so many competing requests of your time, how to think through things. And for me, I really don't believe in one size fits all strategies. So it's a combination of things for me. One, which actions on my part, will catalyze the most momentum. So if I complete edits on a document, now multiple people can go to work because of that, graphic design or programming it into the website. There's lots of action. So if there's a single action that I can take that will catalyze and remove someone else's obstacles and barriers to action, I always try that. Especially working with small teams and leadership roles, it's all about what obstacles I can free up and break for other people, time that I can give them, because that's the big multiplier, right? I'm just one person, but if I can catalyze 5 or 6 or 10 people, then all of a sudden I'm significantly more effective. So that's the first thought. The other thought is energy. How much energy will it take, and how much do I have available to me? So sometimes I would rather push a deadline back a day so that I can see it with fresh eyes than to try and push it out 6 or 8 hours earlier, even though I'm exhausted or decision fatigued and unable to think really critically and focused. So that's kind of the second piece of it. And then the real deadline versus the inflated deadline. We often talk about, and I joke that, in my world, the deadline is always immediately, if not sooner. And so the big challenge is when everything is immediately, if not sooner, how do you determine the real sort of deadlines? And often it's by going back and asking, like, what day do you actually need this? Verbiage that tends to work in the Silicon Valley culture is like, what's the drop dead deadline for this? But imagine just saying that, like, oh, drop dead. Like, it's this culture of cortisol. And Tim Ferriss used that exact quote in that article I mentioned earlier, but I just thought that was so well put. But yeah, and sometimes the real deadline is actually like a couple weeks out, or especially like if you're working in a support role for an entrepreneur like I am, just because the idea has happened doesn't mean that there's necessarily a deadline of right now. And sometimes you can push it back several months just because of that. Okay, hey Harlow. Okay, what do you think is the easiest and most efficient way to grow from a one-man shop to building a team behind your MTP? So fabulous, and I love the MTP language. So I know that I'm with family here. So MTP stands for massively transformative purpose. It's an idea that Salim Ismail discusses in his book Exponential Organizations, and Peter talks about it a lot at Abundance 360. And it's the idea, it's more than a mission statement. It is something that is so it's bigger than yourself. It keeps you motivated and engaged. It attracts talent, it retains talent. So at Abundance 360, our MTP is empowering entrepreneurs to generate extraordinary wealth while creating a world of abundance. So there's lots of little elements in there. So easiest and most efficient, I would say, is identify the areas of the business that you are absolutely fabulous at. You are best in class. No one is better at you than these things. So for Peter, he's really great at fundraising. He's really great at inspiring and educating really successful, talented people. He's great at expressing and inspiring and delivering really challenging information in a bite-sized, easy to consume fashion and making it exciting and fun. So for him, the things that he, the activities that someone could very easily take off of his plate to let him do more of that, thereby growing the business more quickly and easily and more fun, is by finding someone to take on the CEO stuff, the admin things, the HR. And in that one-man shop, you're doing HR, you're doing business development, you're doing sales, you're doing fulfillment, and there's a number of things in there, parts and pieces that are really time consuming that you could pay someone to do better than you for less money than you would charge a client for your hourly rate. So I would start with that. That's kind of the low-hanging fruit. What are the things that you can very easily have someone else do for less than you would charge a client, and outsource those? And a couple of really promising sources that we've had, I've had folks from Odesk, well, now it's Upwork, but at the time it was Odesk, and Fiverr and freelancer.com. But to be honest, the most success that we've had long term is by finding a really enterprising entrepreneurial junior or senior in college who is looking for college credits. Have them come on to you for a semester long, or in some cases, in 2 of our cases, we've had folks on for more than for a year or more in an internship where they're providing college credit, and you are giving them very, very transferable knowledge, mentorship, skills. You're shortening the learning curve in the business world for them. And in exchange, they're helping with a variety of tasks. It could be social media, it could be writing, it could be, and of course, there's some massaging. It's very different from hiring someone who has had 10 years of experience in that exact job for really, it's a different level of candidate. But the upside for that little bit of investment is you've got loyalty, you've got growth, you have youth, and they're hungry, they're passionate, they're talented, and they think of things in a completely different way. So that's one way that we've sort of built in innovation into our businesses. So to recap that, I would start by identifying what you want to do and what you absolutely don't want to do, and recognize that there's a gray area that will probably still have to be you while you hand it over. And then finding a person or a service to solve that problem. So as an example, numbers are not my thing, but I know that I need an accountant. And so I use bench.co. It's outsourced bookkeepers. And there's a ton of really fabulous services that do similar services. But yeah, they do my books, they ask about expenses, I send in reports, and then they hand my tax preparer beautiful books every year, and then it's just easy. And that amount of time that I was messing around with QuickBooks and stuff, I use for other things, including sleep. So even the ROI of things like sleep, you don't discount it. I hope that helps. Lisa, sometimes priorities and deadlines are not my own, so I appreciate this insight. Yeah, I live in that world too, Lisa. And the fun part of it is managing and mediating between the vision and what's actually possible. And that's the most challenging part of our role, but it's also the most fun because it feels like you're making magic, because you're just, sometimes the entrepreneur just sees the after effects, which is effectively what they wanted got done, but they don't see all the behind the scenes stuff that goes into it. And I love reflecting, especially when there's competing deadlines, and it's like, okay, well, I've got project A, a couple meetings with so-and-so, and you just reflect your current priorities, and you're like, should this go first? Should it go last? Help me. And sometimes the entrepreneur will help you prioritize by going, oh, wait, no, actually, against all these other things, it can probably wait. But what it's also doing is really subtly and non-confrontational, in a non-confrontational way, expresses like, hey, I've got an F ton of stuff to do. And, is this a potential hole in the organization, an area to bring in additional talent, or use a contractor? And so it's often like a way to just have that in there. So John, when you energize yourself with yourself, how do you transpose that to others? So for me, I am an introvert. I'm very recharged when I'm alone. And when I've got alone time, and to me, the most glorious thing is time to just think. What a luxury. So as a result, I really only get to talk to people that I want to be around. It's coaching clients, it's our community, it's our colleagues, it's our Abundance 360 members, strategic coach team members. And honestly, I love spending time with everyone that I talk to. So I am genuinely excited every time I get to see my team, because we're all remote and I love everyone. So that very much is genuine. And it's also caring for others. I very much want my teammates and my colleagues and everyone that I work with, I want them to genuinely know in their hearts that I love and care for them, and that I'm looking out for their best. And I think that they know that. And because of that, it enriches our relationship even further. So another thing another powerful insight I got from Brendan Burchard, who is a best-selling author, and he's got a ton of info products out there. And we know each other through Joe Polish, and he's advised Peter on some stuff, just a really great human being. But one of the things that he, well, I don't know if he's the original person who said it, but it stuck with me when he said it. But the idea is that you are your own power plant. And I have found that to be a really powerful idea. And every time I'm feeling less than excited to be alive, I just sit and I think like, okay, I am my own power plant. I can snap myself out of this funk. So if it's one of those days, I leave the room, I exit the situation. I start thinking about things I'm grateful for, situations I'm grateful for. I'm lucky in that my physical environment has a great deal to do with my mood. One, because of the way that I've optimized it, but two, because of the very nature I grew up here. So this is a nostalgic, familiar and safe place for me. So from that, I find a tremendous amount of energy. But you know, if we're traveling or if we're on the road for an event, sometimes it's just like I will shut myself in and shut myself in my room, find a quiet place, and just have some decompression time. I find that when I present that best, most energetic and excited version of myself, that passion, and it is with reconnecting with passion. I care about the people that I work with. I care about the work that I do. I love doing it. I would do it for free. And the great thing is I get paid to do it. But with all those things, it's really hard to have a crappy day. But when I do, I just kind of remove myself, recharge. It's usually because I'm overwhelmed and I'm an introvert. So I just need some alone time. I hope that helped. Let's see. What else do we have? Merry Christmas to you, Harlow. Thank you. Yeah, so managing external factors is another thing that got quite a bit of votes in our poll. And unscheduled interruptions from family, pets, roommates, friends. This is really hard because one of the best things about working at home is that you are available to your people in your life, your family, your spouse, your friends, your roommates. The danger is that when you need to shut down, they're still there and they don't know. The funny thing is, my husband has ADD, and he's just really always spur of the moment, where I'm much more structured and unscheduled. And he'll pop in, and one thing that he said to me is like, I never know what mood you're going to be in, because for what he sees, he just sees me on the computer. He just sees me staring at a screen. But he hasn't read what I've read. He hasn't been on the other end of the calls that I've been on. And so sometimes there are some things that I'm frustrated about that that are happening. And because we're not in, let's say we're working in a restaurant, it's very clear what's going on and who's talking to whom and whatever. But in a virtual environment, it's much more difficult to parse. So one of the things that we put into place was, so I've got my office bar in the back. Anytime I am out there, it's like I don't exist. That means even if the windows are open and I am visible, or even if I am out facing, and say he's working in the garage or outside in the backyard, even if I'm facing and looking at him, I'm really just looking into that space. So for us, that was the rule. Like, if I go to the office bar, there's no emotions, no negativity, no nothing. It's just like, that's like capital W work versus lowercase work, where, I can be interrupted and it's fine. So because of that, I kind of try and anticipate it, and I block some time out in the calendar. And anytime I'm out in the office bar, there is, on all the team calendars, there's a block that I've scheduled with myself where I'm unavailable. Sometimes I don't even bring the phone out, which is scary, because they say that most millennials are never more than 3 feet from their smartphones, which is crazy. So I'm a renegade and I walk away. But because of that, I end up doing more work in that 2-hour chunk or 3-hour chunk or 1-hour chunk. Sometimes it's just for a little bit, just to crank out 2 or 3 really concrete things. But the whole point is dedicating a space and a time. And letting other people into that, because they can't read your mind. And especially when we're all in our screens all the time, there's no way that someone else can see what you're working on and when it's appropriate to interrupt and all that. So that's one way I do it, is just blocking out time. And then that said, if Peter calls, I'm going to pick up the phone. So there's always some wiggle room in there. But it's overall just trying as much as you can to control as much as you can, so that the stuff that you can't ever factor in or predict or explain, you've got more bandwidth to deal with that. Another thing, I know Ari Meisel from Less Doing does this, and I started doing it too, and I love it, is just configuring your scheduler. I use Schedule once, but Calendly is another good one. But only configuring available times on like 2 or 3 days, or only in afternoons, or whatever your optimal schedule is for communicating with others. And then he, when people want to book him or anything with him, he just goes, okay, here's a link to my scheduler. Pick a time that's convenient for you. And so it's all about what's convenient for the person. But when they actually click the link, they don't see that you've intentionally blocked. They only see available times. So they go, oh, this person's really busy. Well, that's true, but it's also true that that Ari and I and people who use this strategy also are really careful about how they use their time. So that's a huge takeaway, and one to try if you're on the phone a lot, or so for me, I always have calls in the afternoon because I have time to warm up. I have time to get a sufficient chunk of my day done. And then in the early afternoons, it's a really low energy period for me anyway. So using that time to recharge myself by giving back to others is super, super helpful. Awesome. Thank you, John, who writes, thank you, Marissa, for your insight and energy to make you more productive, especially like your email strategy. Yes. Thank you so much. Yeah, I love this stuff. It's honestly the passion that I have, is because we've been told all our lives, oh, well, hopefully you commute. And in Los Angeles, hopefully one day you find a job that is under, a 35-minute commute. And they're just, it's too much of your life that is just not optimized. I can't deal with that. So then one other note on self-care. So quality time with family, friends, partner, pets, downtime, recharging, exercise. This is a little bit extreme, but I have to really set these systems up for myself to force myself to do it and stay doing it. I actually schedule in unscheduled time. So it sounds a little weird, but I block out time in the calendar where it's like, do something. And that freedom of like, do something new or go to another thing. And each month we have a different theme. So it's like we might go to all the museums, or we might go to some of the different beaches or explore. And usually it involves Mike, my husband, and I just being tourists wherever we are. Sometimes we wrap it into a weekend trip or a little road trip. But yeah, the big idea is scheduling it into your day, into your week, into your month, and making it a regular part of your routine. So as an example, every morning and every evening, I've got unscheduled time, and I have a list of activities that I can do, but I never really pick the thing I'm going to do until it's time. And sometimes it's just a really long workout. Sometimes it's writing and reading and brainstorming. Sometimes I pick an area of my life that I just want to think through and help work through a problem. So I write down, and it's a huge brainstorming creative session. But by making that time, carving out time for a date night, carving out weekends where we're offline, away, there's no catching up on the business, no nothing. It's just creative, recharging, kid-like play. That stuff is huge. And then too, if you're the type of person who needs 8+ hours of sleep and you're not getting it, that's a pretty great way to ensure that you create some space for yourself to actually sleep. Sleep funny enough, is Ariana Huffington's #1 productivity tip: get enough sleep. So yeah, let's see. If we do not have any other questions, I will give you guys the last 5 minutes of this hour, or the last 10 minutes of this hour back. Talk about being ridiculously efficient. Thank you again for just the time that we spent together. I hope you got some valuable, actionable insights to take from this. And in a little while, well, I'm gonna have a little lunch, and then in a little while, I'll send a follow-up email with all of the assets that I mentioned earlier, all the links, articles, and I'll also give you an opportunity to go deeper on these topics with me in some coaching if that's a fit for you. So enjoy the rest of your week and your holiday season. Greg, thank you back, and I will talk to you guys very soon. Thank you, Melanie. I appreciate the time that you invested to spend with me today, and be in touch soon. Have a great day. See ya.